when we first put this presentation together, the title of it that's actually included in the program is Leveraging Lexile. But once we did our presentation at the RESA, they really encouraged us to change it to more a high school approach to literacy, because we know that improving literacy is not just about Lexiles. So I wanted to go ahead and point that out to you. You will find some information on Lexiles, but this session is not just about Lexiles. It's about the school-wide literacy plan. We're going to begin with what we call some of the big shifts. As we move from the GPS standards to the Common Core standards, there were some things that we had to reorganize. It wasn't that we threw the baby out with the bathwater and started from a clean slate, but there were a few things that we needed to start thinking about differently. If you will get the packet, it's more of the golden packet. We started with the anchor standards. So the anchor Common Core standards were organized around reading, writing, speaking and listening, and language. So when we first started this work, we knew that there were anchor standards, and we knew that those standards were not just for the English teachers. We knew that those standards were to be addressed across the curriculum. But we started really asking ourselves questions. Well, how are we going to start implementing the new standards? Who should be involved? How much should we read? When should we write? How should we score it? And all of those questions really turned into our school-wide literacy plan that we'll kind of get to in a moment. Before we do that, I want you to engage with me in an article. This is an article that we use, and we found it to be quite helpful at our school. This article is called 5 Things Every Teacher Should Be Doing to Meet the Common Core State Standards. These 5 things are outlined on this slide. But what I'm going to ask that you do, we're going to count off into 5s. This is a strategy. I know that it's not always effective for you to just count your students off in the classroom. However, this could be an efficient way for you to dissect or jigsaw an article. So I'm going to ask for you to read for me in groups. Everyone will read the first page, which is just the introduction. And then when we get to page 2, we'll break off into sections. And I'll ask you to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Let's start back up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, and 2. Okay, thanks. So ones will lead high-level text-based discussions. 2s focus on process, not just content. 3s create assignments for real audiences and with real purpose. 4 teach argument, not persuasion. 5s, you'll read increased text complexity, and then the summary is just a little brief paragraph that I would like everyone to read. So if you will, please, if you'll read your respective articles or paragraphs for me. Once you read that section, if you'll just get the one most pertinent point, the one most pertinent point. seems that we're kind of finishing up. Let's start with the introduction. If you'll give me just a one-sentence summary. So what was the gist of the introduction?
And we're going to read an article that talks about 5 ways that we're shifting
Okay,
between this and
okay. As a one-sentence summary, maybe we could say things are changing. How about that? Things are shifting. We're going to also demonstrate on the document camera a tree map. Are you familiar with thinking maps? Okay, a tree map would be a way that you can have students to read and then respond in writing. And so the one-sentence summary for the introduction may be something to the effect of things are shifting, things are changing. Okay? If you were a 1, what was one of the most pertinent points that you took from section 1? Lead high-level text-based discussions.
You should start with the text and hold off on engaging in opinions.
Okay. Focus on the text more so than opinions. Okay? Anything else? Section 1.
I think it was one of the quotes, they were quoting someone else, but it was talking about how the standards really require students to demonstrate a careful understanding of what they're reading. And then it goes on to say that so often we go to the broad open-ended questions first, and that really we need to focus back on doing close readings and getting students to understand the detail of the text.
Okay? Demonstrating understanding of the text may be a way for us to point that out. What about section 2? Focus on process, not just content. Process, not just content. Okay?
Basically, that we should give students the opportunity to discover the information on their own.
Okay.
Not just the content, give them the opportunity.
Okay? The opportunity to discover, the discovery process. Okay? Just by show of hands, how many of you are on like a 7-period traditional, about 55 minutes? And everyone else a block? Okay? And I just ask because sometimes your schedule dictates how far you go or how in depth you go. But those are things that we should be mindful of as we allow students the opportunity to discover. Okay, was there anything else from section 2?
Students should be self-directed learners. I think push them to become self-directed.
Okay, that was something that the first session pointed out. Allowing students to be self-directed. Be self-directed learners. That we more so guide them in their discovery process. Section 3, create assignments for real audiences and with real purpose. Main point? Okay, providing real situations and experiences for students to write about. All right, thank you. Section 3, was there anything else? I see the word authenticity kind of pops out for me, that it should be authentic, the topics that we provide for students. Next, teach argument, not persuasion. That's a big one. Argument, not persuasion. Anyone? On that one, I think if you kind of look at the chart on the back, let me kind of direct you to page 4. This is a really great chart that kind of outlines what the difference is. And I know that especially with our high school writing test, it has been primarily persuasive. So with the shift, and I can't speak about what the new assessment looks like because I don't know. I haven't been a part of that process. However, we have all been directed to look at PARC, P-A-R-C. Is it 1 C or 2? 2 C's, I think. But PARC, you can go to, I think it's parc.org, or you can just kind of Google that, and you can see PARC-like questions. But what we have been told, all the arrows are pointing towards our assessments being argumentative based, meaning that students have to stay away from their opinion, have to stay away from some of the appeals that we all learn, probably in our English program, the bandwagon and all of those things, and that we have to really start looking at kids being able to come up with a thesis, make a claim, cite evidence. That is the main difference between persuasion and argument. Next, increased text complexity. What did that, I think that was section 5. What did you find that kind of stood out to you in section 5? Okay?
I thought look for a balance. Material should be difficult enough that students are learning something new, but not so hard that they give up.
Okay? That it should be balanced. And this is one of the reasons that we moved our title away from just focusing on the Lexals. That it's not just about the Lexile level that students read on, and you will hear us talk a lot about Lexile because we feel that that is a good foundation or a basis. It gives us a lot of information. It's formative information in the classroom for us to begin with, because if the kid is not, if they have a low Lexile level, that is a true indication that they may struggle with the material that we provide for them. So we need to pay attention to that, but that's not the only thing that we're considering in the classroom. But we need a good, strong balance. That was one of the questions that I had as an administrator who's tasked with preparing professional learning in my building. The question that I had, well, if we're stretching the Lexals, if we're trying to push students up to be college and career ready, does that mean that I can't provide students with material below their grade level or on grade level? And according to this, it says there needs to be a balance. Obviously, students are going to struggle if you give them something that's above their Lexile. However, for them to get better, the research that I've read says that in order to improve, students need to read more on grade level, and then you stretch them. Okay? So that kind of answers that question. So in summary, what would you take from this article? What's the gist of the article? What?
It's not to get bogged down in the details of each standard, but to look at it in a more comprehensive look
Okay.
at what those standards should be. And try to move kids towards that.
Okay.
instead of getting bogged down.
Look at the range, I guess, the range of reading, the range of writing. I share this with you because this was something that helped our school. So as we talk about a school-wide literacy plan and how much reading, what should we read, how much should we write, who should grade it, which department should be involved, this was an article that our entire school read, and it really gave us a basis for where to go as far as beginning a school-wide literacy plan. Before I get into the next piece of the presentation, Ms. Fagan is going to give you some information. We're trying to be technological, and we're trying to just kind of model for you some tools that you can use around technology. So she's going to share with you some Twitter information.
Yes, if you are on Twitter and you have any questions, we're okay with the old-fashioned of raising up the hand. But if you are like some of my students and they don't want to talk out loud, they'll shoot me a tweet and ask the question, and that way I can answer them. Our school is all in favor of using technology. So we have a hashtag. If you would hashtag GHS Lit Plan with any of your questions, we'll be happy to answer them just as quickly as possible. And then if later you go back to your school and you still have questions, I get up on Saturday morning and Sunday morning and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and I read Twitter pretty much before I do anything, so your questions will be answered. And if you would like more information, we'll be happy to shoot it to you. But our hashtag is GHS Lit Plan.
And that's funny, at the point that I explained that we were trying to be more technological, my presentation stops working. So I'm going to try to wing it here, and hopefully that will load in a moment. So the next thing that I want to point out to you is because I explained to you that the master iPod kind of controls it, so I can't even advance it over there. But anyway, what I wanted to go ahead and look at with you is in the back of this packet. what you'll find is our school-wide literacy plan. Well, actually, it's a blank template, because what we wanted to do today was to get you started thinking about your school and your literacy needs. How many of you, or how many of your schools have a school-wide literacy plan? Okay, kind of. Tell me about the kind of.
We just sort of started approaching it from a school-wide perspective and really focusing on the writing section now. Having a common language for writing so that everyone's using the same terminology, not just English teachers. Writing in every subject every day is a focus. But that's really kind of where we are.
Okay. It's a great start. And what brought you to start looking at that?
Well, we just recognize the need, the standard. We're looking at Common Core standards, and the increase of literacy standards in some of the non-English disciplines really requires that we address some of the gaps that have occurred.
Right. Likewise for us. And that's how we got to that point. We realized that we were at a point of change. Things were shifting. I do feel that a lot of the good, solid strategies that we had, that we were using with GPS and QCC, probably are still good, strong, effective strategies. However, with the push to have our students to be college and career ready, it's like we're lifting the floor and we're trying to push students. And in my mind, I thought about, well, what was it that I was expected to do freshman year of college that I grappled with? Take your mind back to freshman year of college, and you were stepping out of high school with that good, strong A or B, and you went to your freshman year class, and it was like, oh my goodness, I haven't had to write a 20-page paper before. No one's ever asked me to do that. What are the tools that I need to use? You mean to tell me I need to go to the library on my own time? You know, we would dig through the resource guides, what did we call them, the SIRS, and all of those type things to do research. In my mind, when I think of college and career readiness for high school students, that was my end goal. I'm trying to prepare these high school students to step into a freshman level English course, or even a psychology, or whatever the discipline is. And so for us, what we did was we pretty much took the anchor standards. We took reading, writing, speaking and listening, and language, and we plotted that in a school-wide literacy plan so that we could start speaking that common language. And some of those questions were answered for us. Let me see if
I'm good. I'm trying to get it. It kicked you off the network.
Okay, it kicked me off of the network. What I wanted to show you was our actual school-wide literacy plan. And so we started with reading. We knew that we wanted our students to read actively every day, because the standards don't just address reading comprehension or reading for fun like it used to, but students need to actively read. I've heard Ms. Thompson say if the page is not marked up, you didn't read it, because it's such a passive activity to read. Show me, what's the evidence that you read it or that you have been reading? Next, we included in our plan that we wanted, on each unit test, we have common unit tests. And so if we're moving towards part-like assessments that are moving away from multiple choice, we wanted to go ahead and get in front of that and expose students to reading passages on every assessment. I'm not saying that it needs to look like the EOCT every unit test, but go ahead and include a short passage on every test, not just in English, but in science, in social studies, in engineering. Go ahead and include a reading passage for students. Next, we want students to engage with diverse formats and media. When you think about a college level class, you probably had to get signed up with Blackboard or Live Text. So we started exposing students to Edmodo and Google Docs, those type things that would help them to collaborate with their peers and to create those presentations in class. Here we go. Next, we did focus on reading levels. We all know that with the CCRPI, with the new index, that there's a specific indicator that tells us that students should be at a 1275 by the time they're in the 11th grade. That's why we don't just focus on Lexile, but that's something that each school is going to be measured on individually. So just a rhetorical question, not for you to give me the answer out loud, but do you know the Lexile level of all of the students in your school. We didn't a year ago. We know that students, when they come to the 9th grade, they bring their CRCT Lexile. That's one measure that you can look at. Once they take the 9th grade literature ELCT, there's a 9th grade ELCT Lexile. You won't get another Lexile until the 11th grade, that Lexile that they get with the American Lit ELCT. So the questions that you should take back to your school is department chair or department administrator, what are the Lexile levels of our students? And if you don't know, this is a great place to start. And where do you plot that, or how do you plan for that? On your literacy plan. And so basically what we took was the college and career readiness expectation and the 11th grade expectation, and we just stretched that out so that at each grade level there is a goal for students. We have access to the SRI, which is a paid program through Read 180. Your school may not have access to that. And so you may be a school that has to just monitor it every other year. What I've been told is that students' Lexiles typically don't change unless they have specific reading instruction. So if they're in a reading class, you should expect a tremendous growth. But if students aren't specifically working on that Lexile, usually they're not going to see a whole lot of growth. So you can use your CRCT or your ELCT Lexile scores for purposes of setting goals. Also, we wanted our students to be reading something every day. And so we use Kelly Gallagher's Articles of the Week. You can Google that, and they're free. Just to give you another resource, Newsela, which is just news, ELA, is another free source. And someone just told me at the end of last session, TED Talks. I had used it for the videos, never used it for the articles. So TED Talks, from what I understand, also has articles that you have access to. Next, we moved on over to writing and what those expectations were for students. Just like reading, we wanted students to write in some format every day. Our math teachers may have been one of the departments that, kind of kicked back at first. I won't say they weren't necessarily negative, but I took it more so as an unknown. It was approaching an unknown, and they felt like they could not adequately assess students' writing. We started them with saying, at least expect your children to come in and write a complete sentence. Start the sentence with a capital letter, end with a period. It's a complete thought. We can at least start with that. And so we came together on some common terms of some things that we could expect of everyone. We expect that every teacher on their unit test has at least one open response item. We didn't say write an essay on every test, but it could be just a quick, open-ended question. Again, this is getting us ready for that shift, that move away from multiple choice to being able to defend your claims and to write in an open fashion. Next, for us, I heard the table in the back saying that they just concentrated kind of in this column on writing. You have to assess your school and what you feel you can do in 1 year. We just went ahead and did everything at once based upon the anchor standards. But we found that there was no real expectation for writing. We had some English teachers would require a research report, some would not. And what you find is that you'll have in your school, there'll be some students that will graduate and never have to write a research paper. If we're preparing our students to be college and career ready, we really have to stop that. And really, if we think about the student, to make sure that they're not getting too much, because just think if, they're writing 10 pages over here in English and 8 pages over here in social studies, that can be overwhelming and we can be counteractive. Right now, what we have is a requirement in the English department. 9th graders write a 4-page research report, 6, 8, and then 10 pages by the time the students graduate. That is an English language arts requirement. We've had people ask, well, shouldn't we be writing across the curriculum? Yes, students should be writing in every content area, but as far as the teaching of research, the English department still takes that ownership. They still teach the research, but we do expect writing and other content areas. I'm going to jump over to speaking and listening. This is an opportunity to teach our students how to collaborate with their peers, whether it's group work. We often talk about students not knowing how to do group work, and I find that that's true sometimes. But it's really, what is our expectation? What do we want that to look like? How many times have you, in a college level class, been assigned to a group? Many times. You may like the group, you may not like the group. There's got to be someone in the group that doesn't pull their load. There's someone that has something that pops up and they don't do their portion of the work. So again, for us, our model was, what is the expectation? What does it look like? What should the student be able to do by the time they leave us and step on the campus of a freshman level class? And then obviously with language, it's really just all of those things, trying to get students out of the texting language, trying to get them to speak clearly and complete sentences. At least put your name and format at the top of your paper, please. You know, those type things are just common expectations. Did it freeze it again? Okay. Yeah, it's advancing. What you'll notice is that we had expectations for students, so what you'll see on your plan is that the student will and the teacher will. The teacher will part of it is more so on the teacher side. What we listed there, and I think we're frozen up here, may have to pause and go to the PowerPoint presentation. But what we listed on the teacher side is what are the tools that teachers need to monitor students in writing and reading. And so we listed the data that we had access to, such as Lexil's, SRI data, when our students take the PSAT. That's also data. We just plotted that so that it would just become part of what we do. We also listed resources, and you'll hear some resources in a moment. Some of these resources are programs that we pay for, but today what we're trying to do is also give you a sprinkling of some free resources that will do the same thing. But this work is just an intentional work. It's you sitting down with a team of teachers, with your administrators, and really coming to terms as far as what are your expectations? What do we expect of students? And then also what will help teachers is go ahead and plan out those resources that are available, because we find that we're most resistant, not because we're trying to push back, but really we're strapped for time. We don't want something that we have to go create, find. So as many resources that we could find, we went ahead and made those available for our teachers. We also included certain things into our school-wide professional learning plan for what we did for the year. So before I transition to Ms. Fagan, and she's going to talk about reading strategies, think for a minute and just list a few things. What is it that you feel every student should be doing for reading? One of our goals is that we wanted students to read every day something, or we wanted them to read at least an article each week. One of our goals is that they read between 35 and 40 articles within a week. What is an expectation that you feel you should have at your school for reading? You'll write that and we'll share in a minute. And then go ahead across for writing, speaking and listening, and language. Have any department chairs in the room? Department chairs. Okay. utilize content leads, or you just have a department chair at your school? Mainly department chairs. Someone tell me, what is an expectation that you feel your school should have, and it could be around either one of the areas listed. What is something you'd like to see at your school? Or any school?
I like the idea, first, we want to see increase the writing, everyone should write in every area. And we had some of the same apprehension from teachers who didn't feel comfortable with writing themselves.
Okay.
And so that was the struggle, is to really, we can talk about doing it, but how do you assess whether or not that's happening in the classroom?
Okay.
And so, but that was an expectation.
Okay. And it may be great for you, like the school back here, where they seem to have started with one area, just kind of focus in on that area until you get that where you want it to be, and then move on to the next area. What are some other expectations you feel every student should be doing?
Well, we were just talking about the fact that, one, just having the program, just having a school-wide program where they're reading on a consistent basis.
Okay.
And it goes back to the research you shared about the lifestyles aren't going to increase it.
Right.
It's not that deliberate focus on it.
Okay, thank you. One other thing, and I became off track once the presentation went down. Just another writing resource. We do have access to some paid programs, but this one is something that you can access for free as you start talking a common language. One thing that we discussed was the grading or the assessment of writing. A lot of times is off. So if students go to one class and they write one way and go to another class is different, you may be also counterproductive. And so we have turnitin.com, which is a great online paid program that allows students to upload their essays, and it will give you the percent that it's plagiarized or the percent that it's original. Think about freshman year in college. This is something that students need to be exposed to. Your school may not have the funding to buy something like turnitin.com, but the benefit that you'll get from these rubrics is that you can just Google turnitin.com, and these are free. And if you can at least start with your department, get everyone to start using the same rubrics, at least in your department, then your next conversation could be school-wide. How do we use these? And a lot of times the English department has to take the lead. You have to say, hey, the English department will do the professional learning. We'll show everyone else how to use these rubrics. Now, if you purchase Turnitin.com, the great feature is that these are already stored, and so our teachers just click 3 proficient 2, and it calculates it for you. And it's there in one database. That's great, but I think the most important thing is just having a common language for scoring. So those are there for your use. Ms. Fagan, reading.
As Dr. Taylor mentioned, one of the things that we do when our technology doesn't work is, not really sure what happened here, but I'll just talk anyway because I'm good at that. Okay. Well, as Dr. Taylor mentioned, we do the Scholastic Reading Inventory 3 times a year. At the very beginning of the year, some of our students will come to us from places that do not use the CRCT, so we don't have a Lexile score for them. And some of our students, for whatever reason, just chose to be absent the day of testing and the day of makeup test. So to alleviate that problem, we test all of our students at the very beginning of the year with our SRI, the Scholastic Reading Inventory. At the beginning of the year, we just want them to go in there and do their best. If they're not where we expect them to be, that's okay. We tell them the score range for each grade level, and then we go from there. One of the benefits of doing this testing is that our children are able to see immediately where they are, and then the teachers are able to go back and adjust the instruction accordingly, as well as our administrative team is able to look at the data, make some class changes, and we do have Read 180 teacher dedicated to our freshman academy. We have academies at Griffin High. Our freshman academy has a dedicated Read 180 teacher. There is also a Read 180 teacher for the upper grades, and then we have another teacher who does some reading classes that are called English classes just because for a variety of reasons, but the children are getting targeted reading instructions so that they can work on the skills that they need. So we're able to make those adjustments based on the results of the Scholastic Reading Inventory. We do another test in January to measure progress, and then when we go back to school, tomorrow we will finish the testing so that we can see if our students have made the gains that they should have based on their test at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. I told my children, I teach 11th grade, I said, by the end of the year, the expectation is that you are at a 1275. That when they first took the test, I got a 900, Ms. Fagan, that's great. Well, that's great if you would like to be, and there's nothing wrong with these jobs, but with a 900 Lexile, you were limiting yourself to a labor-type position or a clerk. No, Ms. Fagan, you don't understand. I'm going to the University of Georgia, and then I'm going to medical school. I am going to be a doctor. Okay, not trying to squash your dreams. You've got some work to do. So we've got to make sure that if you want to be a doctor, you've got to get your Lexile score up. So now they're making connections with, if I'm not reading outside of school, my Lexile score is not going to go up. So, oh, can I go to the media center? Sure, get a book, please. You know what your Lexile score is? Read the book. We can have some conversations. So we have the conversations periodically throughout the year as their scores are going up. Okay, if your score is going up, you are able to move into a different kind of profession. One of the handouts you have talks about the Lexile scores of the text, of some of the textbooks, as well as some of the newspapers that are published. My particular packet is the canary colored one, so there's a handout in there about Lexile scores, and it will tell you the different newspapers across the country, as well as some of the professions and things like that with the Lexile. So the children, they're making the connection now, and they're trying to do better than at the beginning of the school year. Okay, one of the reports that we can get, and like I told you, we do meet by grade level, and we are able to see how many of our children with a number and a percent, how many of our children are at the below basic level. And obviously at the beginning of the year that number is probably high. When we run this report for the very last time next week, we would like for the numbers to all go up. We have our below basic, our proficient, and our advanced students. The below basic students, those are the ones that we do want to target the instruction with the Read 180 or some of our supplemental English classes. Also, down at the very bottom, and you may not be able to see that very well, these are the year-end proficiency Lexile ranges according to SRI. Our literacy plan has the numbers just a little bit different, just because that's what works with our student body population, and you are free to change your numbers to fit your student body population as well. But we are able to get those reports and make some decisions about what we need to do with our instruction. Okay, when the children sit down, the SRI is a computer-based test. And a lot of my kids will tell me, I haven't done any reading since we did Accelerated Reader in middle school. It's not a good thing, guys. Well, there's nothing in the media center that I like to read. That's not true. And I start rattling off, because our media specialist is very responsive to what the children want to read. And if they like to read the books about the wizards and the dragons and stuff, she will order books about that. If they want to read the books about, sports, she'll order those books. So we have a variety of books in our media center. When the children sit down to the computer to take their SRI, it asks them, what things are you interested in? And then they check those circles, and then their test moves on. As they're taking the test responds to how they answer the question. So if they're getting questions wrong, it will adjust the E so that we are able to get an accurate number for their Lexile score. At the very end of the test, a list is generated. If the child says that they are interested in reading myths and folk tales, a list is generated of myths and folk tale books on their Lexile level so they can print it off, take it to the media center and say, can I get some of these books to read? And then we've made some progress because they now have something that they're interested in on their level. One of the strategies that we use at Griffin High School is the article of the week. And with the shift to Common Core, and we're supposed to do more informational text, our literacy plan said, okay, this is what we're going to do. During our instructional learning time, which is during fifth period, that's a 30-minute class, 30-minute period, during fifth period, where all of the teachers are doing this article of the week. It's this, everybody has the same article and they change on Mondays. These are the instructions that we were given, and it tells us day by day what we're supposed to do. We do have some flexibility based on the population in your classroom. For instance, Mrs. Thompson teaches AP, I believe, fifth period, so her children have different needs than my collaborative American Lit class fifth period. One of the things that I like to do, and with our article of the week, we are addressing the reading standards, speaking, listening, and viewing. I usually start mine off with a short video clip that relates to the article of the week to get their interest, and then we go through the week. You'll have in your packet, there is the strategy that we use called Unravel, and we teach the children to unravel the article as they're reading it. There's the Unravel strategy, and there is a copy of one of the articles of the week. We're not going to actually read the article, but I am going to show you a couple of things that I do with the article as I'm reading it with the children. Okay, I've gone ahead and I've circled some words. One of the things that the Unravel strategy tells you to do is to underline the title of the article. So I would underline the title of the article, and I tell the kids, okay, just as soon as you underline it, and you've underlined new technology, your brain should get in gear and you should start thinking, what is this article going to be about? It's going to be about some kind of technology. Well, you're going to unravel. I want you to number your paragraphs. I want you to go through, and I want you to circle words that you don't know. If there are questions that you have, write those questions in the margin. Sometimes I will go ahead and write words and put them on the board that I think that they don't know. Other times, I let them pick their words. For the sake of time, I've gone ahead and I've circled some words that my children may or may not know, because again, my fifth period class is a collaborative class. They may know what elegant means, but they may not know if you put in front of it what that means. So I've circled inelegant. They may not know galloping. They may not know who Usain Bolt is, equilibrium, things like that. With our bring your own device policy that we have at school, if the children come across an unfamiliar word, they are able to pull out their device, look it up, and they can make notes instead of saying, and you know, I've got, I think, about 25 kids. Miss Fagan, what does equilibrium mean? Miss Fagan, what does galloping mean? They're looking it up and they're being responsible for their own learning. So it works for us in a variety of ways. Now, each one of those sections is about a different type of technology. So as we're going through the week, we're reading the article, we're talking. At the end of the article, there are some questions that the children can ask in a written format, so they are actually writing, and that does address some of the writing standards. There are other things that we can do. Like I said, at the beginning of the week, I'll show a video clip most of the time to get them interested. Depending on the article, one week we had an article and it was about Facebook privacy, and the children, we debated for several days about whether or not schools should be able to have access to students' Facebook. So we have debates. That's, you know, we're arguing back and forth. That's teaching them how to argument. So the article of the week can branch off into a lot of things, and everybody is doing this. And it works because there's a variety of articles. As I mentioned, we have academies at Griffin High. We have a STEM Academy, Consumer Sciences, and Fine Arts. This article, my kids in the STEM Academies, I have fifth period STEM classes, they like this. Our Fine Arts kids, we have articles that would appeal to them. So at the end of the week when we're doing things, well, can you draw one of the robots that would do something? Sure, but I need you to write a description. So they're drawing and they're writing, we're talking, they're getting up, and they're making presentations to their classmates. So we're covering several different standards with this one article. I'm going to show you a quick little video So that if you were to do this article, this is another resource that you would be able to have.
Usain Bolt may be the fastest man on the planet, but he's been passed by a man-made marvel. This four-legged robot just broke its own land speed record, blowing past Bolt. The Olympic gold medalist peaked at 27.78 miles an hour when he set the world record in the 100-meter sprint back in 2009. The cheetah clocks in at 28.3 miles per hour. The robot was built by Boston Dynamics and funded by the U.S. Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA.
So the real challenge is one of coordinating the motion of the robot, so how it uses its back and legs to get its feet to make contact with the ground and control the posture and pitch of the body while it's running, so that it can actually propel itself forward at rather high speed.
Boston Dynamics is developing a number of robots with amazing mobility. Some walk on two legs. Another may look like a toy, but it can leap 30 feet in the air. And the big dog scrambles over rough terrain on four legs. What it lacks in speed, it makes up for in agility. Give it a kick, and it won't fall over. Put it on ice, and the robot slips, but still manages to stay upright. Scientists say eventually these robots could be used for military, search and rescue, and humanitarian missions.
The hope is that in the longer term that we'll be able to develop systems that can gain access to a lot of terrain that's inaccessible by air vehicles or tractor wheel vehicles.
As far as the cheetah robot, there's still a way to go before it will come close to the real thing. Experts say the world's fastest land mammal can go from 0 to 60 in less than 3 seconds, with a top speed of up to 70 miles per hour. But scientists say they plan to take the next version of the robot off the treadmill for an untethered outdoor test next year. Jonathan Mann, CNN, Atlanta.
Okay, so using the article of the week, you can see how we have addressed several of the different standards. The reading, where we're actually reading the article, speaking, the listening, the viewing, all of those things with the article. And I think one of the things that the students like, they get a new article every week, so it's not like we're reading a novel, and if you don't like science fiction and you're having to read a novel for 3 or 4 weeks, you get bored generally after the first week. Well, they know on Monday they're going to start this article, by Friday they're finished, the next Monday, totally different article, and that's something new for them to get into, and it addresses the 30 to 35 articles that the literacy plan wants the students to be able to read every year. I'm going to turn this over to Mrs. Thompson now for her portion.
During this transition, I'm sorry, I was trying to take notes and I wasn't fast enough. You have something each day of the week for them to do with the article of the week. I got to Thursday. Can you tell me what Thursday? There we go. Thursday, 1-page response, and then, okay.
And what you'll find, being that this was the first year of our literacy plan, we gave some guidelines, and so you can switch it up. Now, if you pull these from Kelly Gallagher's website, put it back on top. What you'll find is that he provides some topics at the top of each of these. When you pull them, like you'll see that this is article of the week 32. The good thing at the web, at his website, he archives them, I think, back 3 years. And so each of them come with these same directions, these 3 at the top. And then on page 2, most of the articles are about 2 pages in length. They're discussion topics at the end. And so that's kind of the good thing. They're already kind of developed for you. You really don't have to do anything but preview them and kind of fit them in.
Thank you.
All right, so now that our students have unraveled the article of the week, and like Ms. Fagan mentioned, they're doing close reading, they're annotating. And so when we rolled out the literacy plan, I'm sitting next to the band teacher, and he said to me, well, I can unravel, but you want me to write? I'll do it, but you're going to have to show me how. So it's not necessarily resistance, but, my science teacher, my chorus teacher, what do we do? So we had to implement tools and give our teachers tools and show them how to implement this across the curriculum. So what we found is that research shows that a strong writing program is three things. We're giving daily writing. We're focusing on instruction. We're moving away from teacher-oriented writing because we give our students a lot of opportunities to write, but are we showing them how to write? And then we want to look at good writing and examine it and reflect on that. So that's what we do across the curriculum. And every teacher in the building is doing it using the article of the week. So if you notice on the article of the week, by Thursday, we're writing. We've already started writing, annotating the text and circling the underline and making notes in the margin. But consider this, when you focus on writing, your students are all over the place. So you have to think about differentiated instruction. For me, I have AP honors. By Tuesday and Wednesday, we're ready to write. We've already had discussion. We've already unraveled, so you have to consider where students are. The typical writing instruction may have a teacher giving a 15-minute lesson, guiding students to focus on a certain writing skill, and then having them practice using guided practice and feedback. But with the article of the week, you could be anywhere, and you want the students to feel successful. So I'm going to show you some of the various instructional strategies that we use. In our school, we have trained our teachers to use Project CRIS. I don't know if anyone's familiar with it. Is anybody familiar with CRIS strategies? You can always Google it if you're interested. CRIS stands for Creative Independence Using Student Oriented Strategies. So you can always Google that. But anyway, one of the strategies is the one sentence summary. And if you're looking at this packet, this is one you want to follow with me. The unravel is the first one. And the L says, let the questions be answered and write a paragraph. Well, like I said, the band teacher may not know how to teach writing, but he could easily use the one sentence summary and guide the students during that period to write and respond to that article. The second thing that we implement across the board, one of the strategies that we use is RAFT, and I don't know if anyone's familiar with RAFT, but on the next page, RAFT stands for our role. Students take on a role. A is for audience. They choose an audience that they have to write to, which directs the writing. They pick a format. And T, the topic is usually a strong verb. Maybe they want to write an apology, convince, etc. And the math teacher can do that. The science teacher can do that, whatever the topic is. This is also available online. And there are various strategies that you can use. Okay, so we realize now that when we started the literature lab, everyone thought we were going to start the park-like testing. And if you're not on board with that, spring 2014 is coming our way. Part 1, we've got multiple choice. What is a simile? Part 2, well, why did the author use that simile? Interpret it. And so school-wide, every discipline implements a constructive response. And if you look on this page, it's just a sample of what is to come. The students read and they have to make a claim. And so we're suspecting that they will need to type. If they're doing online testing, they will need to type in that box. And so we want our students to practice that. And it just depends. I know that Econ did online testing this year. And so we foresee that if they're working on a math equation, they will need to explain their thinking and they have to get used to responding using short response. So school-wide, every discipline has a common unit test, and on that unit test, we have a writing version. The fourth thing that we do on our literacy plan is that throughout the school, every discipline is using the same documentation. The English department mostly uses the MLA, but we've exposed our students to APA as well. We use Galileo, so sometimes you know, there's different documentation in there, but we expose our students to that, we make them understand, and when you go to college, or wherever you go, depends on your professor, of course, we want them to have that kind of exposure. So throughout our school, we've implemented that, and that's consistent. I want to take you to one of our research-based strategy, which is a 3-sentence essay, and I want you to see how that's implemented so we can take a closer look at it.
And this is your 3-sentence essay. Claim it, cite it, and clarify it. 3 sentences.
3-sentence essays allow students to synthesize their learning and teachers to effectively monitor their progress.
So they will be doing some close reading, and then they will also collaborate in a group. And then to wrap up, they'll take their index card, and that's when they'll do the 3 C's, when that's their exit slip. Claim the big ideas, cite it, and clarify. That's the part where you tell me how it all works together to give me the message. That's your objective, so you know, like this way I can go back through them later and I can say, hey, this person didn't quite get that, and so I can figure out a way to do some remediation and to try to help focus them. That's what makes the students more engaged, is picking the right content and picking the right strategies. Awesome. You guys did a fantastic job.
What did you notice in this video? Particularly what the students are doing. The students are the ones that are doing. And that's what we want them to do. You know, on this sheet, I made it into a bookmarks.